I'll see a dad trail side wrestle a rear wheel out of a bike and they fight with it until it comes out. Then they go to put it back in and it goes back in something like this. So why is this such a struggle? Why is the rear wheel so difficult? Well, there's two very simple things that people are not doing, and I'm gonna show you. The first is switching into the smallest gear. So first of all, even if the rear wheel is already off, you can go up to the shifter and you can change this to the smallest cog. So that means the derailleur is the furthest to the outside of the bike as possible. Now, you hold the cage and pull it back, get that first ring over the chain, and look at that, it's like magic. It just falls right into the bike, and then you can latch it and put it back together, and the bike will pedal no problem. It's super easy, there's no struggling, there's no fighting with the wheel. So let's see what it looks like removing it. So we want to take this wheel off and set ourselves up for success, not wrestle with it, right? So again, change it to the smallest cog. That's the littlest gear that's right here. When you go to pull the wheel off, just hold on to the derailleur and pull it back, and then the wheel just comes out like magic. Lots of seemingly easy repairs like that are actually hard for most people, and no need to be embarrassed. We'll be going over a bunch of those today. You can share it with somebody who might be a beginner or could use these tips. One of them actually got me 2 weeks ago. And so this next one is a problem you probably have right now. And the reason I know that is that Pat and I did a free bike repair clinic over at Burn Park. So we brought a whole bike shop worth of tools up there and we tuned up people's bikes. And what we discovered was that every single person's headset was loose.
You got a super loose headset.
Oh. That's this part right over here with the bearings on your head tube that attaches to your fork and your stem. These are loose every single time on everybody's bike. And so it turns out most people don't even know that their headset is loose and they don't know why it's important. So your headset's in here. When you're steering, there are bearings that allow your fork and your handlebar to move. It's what allows you to steer. If those are loose, it can actually cause damage to the bike. First of all, it can cause damage to the bearings because there's impact and rattling. And in the worst cases, it can actually cause damage to your frame. When something's moving, it is allowed to impact things and shift around. Two ways to check to see if your headset is loose. One way is you can squeeze the front brake. It doesn't matter what kind of front brake you have. It can be disc, caliper, whatever. Put your fingers right here and rock the bicycle back and forth. You shouldn't feel any movement. You shouldn't feel this cup moving back and forth. On this one, we can actually see it moving back and forth because I purposely loosened it. Now, the other thing you can do is actually turn the wheel 90 degrees to the bike, and you can move it back and forth like this. And so if you feel some movement over here, your headset's loose. On a BMX bike, I used to actually pick the bike up like this, kind of hold it level, and just go like this. You hear that rattling sound? That's the headset. So on most modern bikes, there's only one bolt that preloads your bearings, and it's this one right over here on the top cap. If you tighten that, it puts tension on the bearings. Only the pinch bolts are stopping the stem from moving up and down and bearing down on the headset, and so you have to loosen these pinch bolts. Now, when I was a kid, I saw my friend take these bolts completely out because the stem wasn't moving. The mistake he was making is he was only undoing one at a time. If you loosen this pinch bolt, and the stem's still not moving, that's because the other one is holding it tight. If you loosen that other one, you don't need to take these bolts out. See, if your handlebars are moving like this, you can tighten your headset. So now what I'll do is go a couple of cranks on this. Now you don't want to over tighten this and over preload the bearings because then you can actually crush something, but I showed you how to test if your headset's loose, and so you'll know whether it's time to tighten those pinch bolts or not. Now the only tricky part is now you have to align the handlebars and the stem. That's kind of eyeballing. Don't worry, if you don't get it perfectly right, you'll notice when you're going down the road or the trail. You don't really have to go crazy on these pinch bolts either. Just tighten them, get them snug. Make sure you can't move the wheel and the handlebars independently of each other. Give it a good kick and make sure you did your job right, and you're done. I am very lucky because my garage is heated, but most garages are not. And so chances are you might be charging an e-bike in sub-freezing temperature, below 32 Fahrenheit or below 0 Celsius. And actually, that's a big no-no. It could start a fire, it could damage your battery. Let me tell you when to worry about it and when you shouldn't. So where the easiness or misunderstanding comes in is you plug in your e-bike and you say, it's not charging, it's broken. And so you bring it to the bike shop and you're like, it's intermittently charging. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It turns out there's probably not a problem with it at all. It's probably more that your battery management system or your charger is sensing the temperature and it's stopping your e-bike from charging. The reason for this has to do with lithium-ion batteries and their chemistry. Charging a lithium-ion battery in freezing temperatures can lead to what are called dendrites on the battery, and they're actually little spikes that could puncture the battery cell and cause fires. If you have a Specialized or a Trek or kind of a legit e-bike, then you're probably not gonna have to worry about this. The battery management system is gonna handle it all and make sure you don't do anything dumb. But if you have like a Amazon or an AliExpress e-bike, I can't tell you for sure. All I do know is that if it does start charging and the actual battery cells are below freezing, it could cause damage or at worst a fire. Don't take it to a bike shop, take it inside and let it warm up. So the next one is the classic dropped chain. Pretty obvious, you put the chain back on the ring, right? I see people struggle with this all the time. And actually in the fall, I was out with my family on the Acosta Trail and this dad was struggling with his daughter's dropped chain and my wife said, why don't you go over and help him? And I thought, I don't really want to do that. You know, I want to let him be the hero, let him solve the problem. I let it go on for way too long. And actually, it doesn't have to be difficult. So what you often see is the chain drops off the front chain ring. Somebody's grabbing it, getting their hands all greasy, fighting the tension of the derailleur and trying to get the chain back on here. Actually, there's one simple trick that makes it a lot easier. Just put your finger on the cage of the derailleur and push it forwards. And now you have all this slack and you can just gently put the chain back on the ring. You could even put it on the bottom and kind of pedal it backwards, back on. It is just remarkably easy once you take that tension out of that spring because that's what's fighting you. And you can see my hands only got a little bit greasy. And if you have a big fancy mountain bike with all sorts of technology, it's still exactly the same thing. You take that derailleur cage, actually some of them even have little lock buttons, so you can lock it in place and you have all this slack, and then you can just very gently and calmly place the chain on the chain ring and pedal it on and release the slack in that derailleur. And then the chain is back on. It is so easy. I see people just fighting it. And their hands are just completely covered in grease. And I didn't help that guy because I wanted him to be the hero, but yeah, I let it go on for way too long and he eventually got it back on and the chain came right back off. And then I went over and helped him. So the next easy maintenance task that people make difficult, pedals. And by the way, the reason that I'm in front of the garage door here with the bike sitting upside down is I want to demonstrate that you don't need a full shop full of tools to make these easier. All you have to do is know what you're doing. Pedals are very confusing for people. Actually, I remember when I was a kid taking pedals on and off my BMX bike, just tightening the pedal harder and harder with like big poles and stuff, thinking that I was loosening the pedal, when I was actually just making it impossibly tight. That's because one of your pedals is reverse thread and the other pedal is normal thread. And even if you know that, sometimes it's confusing. So I'm gonna make it simple for you. Okay, the first thing that makes this worlds easier is bicycle orientation. Doesn't matter if the bicycle is upside down or right side up. All that matters is the drive side is out. Drive side, that's where your chain is, that's where your derailleur is, your cassette. So we're gonna take my gravel bike and we're gonna turn it around so that the drive side is out. So both of these bikes, exactly the same, drive side out. Again, we could turn the bike right side up. Doesn't make a difference. As long as that chain and the derailleur are facing you, you're gonna know what each pedal does. So if you know how to unscrew a soda bottle, then you know how to unscrew a pedal. Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. It's counterclockwise to take it off. And so if you're looking at the bicycle from the drive side, you should be turning the pedal counterclockwise in order to take it off, just like this. Of course, you have to get to the back of it or from the side to turn it. So just another tip, if you have a front chain ring like this, you are going to put a hole in your hand. Shift the chain over this to block it. So as long as you're looking at the drive side, this pedal is going to be lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. And it's going to come right off. So now, I want you to observe. I am sitting in the exact same spot. I haven't moved. The bike hasn't moved. It's in the same orientation. How do you take off this pedal? The same exact way. Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Only you're looking at the pedal from the opposite side, so it's actually reverse thread. Now here's where people start making mistakes. You have both pedals off the bike, both pedals look absolutely identical, and now you're like, okay, I know which way this one goes, let me try and turn it that way, and you're cross-threading, and you're messing all sorts of stuff up, because you don't know what pedal goes on what side, and then one's reverse thread and one's normal thread. Easy way to tell, look at the thread. So for pedals, you're gonna have to put on your super macro vision, but I 3D printed a huge bolt so you can see if you're turning it clockwise in order for it to screw into something, then the end of the thread, the first part of the thread, should be facing so that it goes in clockwise. I don't know how else to explain it. Okay, so putting the pedals back on. I'm gonna use my super macro vision. I can plainly see that this is the normal thread, and so it goes on the drive side. So actually, funny trick, if you pedal backwards, you know where you hear your cassette clicking, that screws the pedal in. There it goes. Pedal is screwing in, no problem. So again, the other pedal is reverse thread, but you're in the same position you were. Turn it the same way. I know it just sounds insane, but turn it the same way. So we're gonna put the pedal in from this side, and we're gonna turn it clockwise to tighten it in. And again, if you backpedal so that your cassette is moving there, the pedal will naturally tighten itself. You can just hold it and go like this. There it is, it's in. Now all I have to do is snug it up, and you're done. So simple. So here's another e-bike one, and this is only gonna happen on some e-bikes. You are on your e-bike, you turn it on, you start pedaling, and the assist is acting all wonky. It's like barely giving you any power, and you bring it to the bike shop, they turn it on, and they're like, dude, it's working fine. You're like, crap, I have this intermittent problem that is gonna rear its ugly head when I need the thing most. What do I do? Well, chances are, you have your foot on the pedal as you are turning it on. And I'll explain what that does. Many e-bikes have torque sensors, and so it's actually sensing how much pressure you put down on the pedal. If your foot is on the pedal when you turn it on, it would be like your foot being on your scale when you turn it on. It throws off the weight. When you first turn on the bike, it's reading 0 torque. Your foot's on the pedal, now it's reading, let's say, 30 Newton meters or something, and you turn it on, then you have to put 31 Newton meters on it to even make the torque sensor show 1. Does that make sense? And so this is an easy repair. You turn the bike off, you take your feet off the pedals, and you turn it back on. Now I must reiterate, only some e-bikes will even be susceptible to this problem, but it's actually a lot of them, more than you might think. If you don't have a torque sensor, or it's a newer bike with a torque sensor and it's more intelligent, it's not gonna happen. But yeah, if you're putting your foot on this and you turn it on, it's pretty much like turning on a scale while you're standing on it. So this next one's pretty easy too, and actually I tapped my bike mechanic friends for this. I sent some text messages out and said, what's the most common thing you see people try to do that they come into the shop with? Everyone said contaminated brake pads. What does that even mean? Right, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out how to get brake pads out, and then you just look at them and you get the same ones, or you walk into a bike shop with them and you say, hey, give me another set of these. So a lot of people try to change brake pads themselves. Then they proceed to do the thing that contaminates them. Just oil from your fingers on the rotor or on the brake pads can actually cause problems so big that you can't even stop the bike and you bring it into the bike shop. But most often it happens when a home mechanic is just grabbing onto their rotor with their hands, greasy hands that they were just grabbing onto their chain with, or they start cleaning their bike and using WD-40 to degrease the cassette. That overspray is gonna get on the rotor and it's gonna contaminate your pads. The rag that you were cleaning your rotor with, maybe it has some grease on it already. You wanna use a paper towel or something that's really, really clean. So what's the remedy for this? Well, there are lots of remedies for contaminated brake pads and rotors that we are not gonna go over here, but they're all pretty involved. You're not just gonna wipe it clean and everything work again. Once your brake pads get contaminated, it's pretty hard to decontaminate them. I've heard of people boiling them. You can use brake cleaner. There are ways to get them clean, but the best way to avoid it is to not contaminate them in the first place. So a few tips. So first of all, WD-40, you can use that on bike parts, but you don't want to just spray it on your bike while your rotor's out there. Now, if you do want to clean something, like let's say the rotor itself, spray bottle with rubbing alcohol and a clean rag that is not contaminated. This is your best friend. It's going to get grease and oils off of everything. That's really the only thing you should be cleaning a rotor with. You're doing some maintenance and you need to put your brake pad someplace. Don't put them like face down on the floor. Put them face up on something like a clean rag. So to review, don't spray this directly on your bike when everything is together. Don't put your hands on your brake pads. Don't put your hands on your rotor. Do use rubbing alcohol, brake cleaner for parts, or just soapy water to clean your bike. It's not gonna mess with your rotor. This will. Every Christmas this happens. Very simple. You notice anything weird about this bike? I'll give you a hint. The fork's backwards. Yeah, every year after the holidays, I go to the park and I see at least one kid riding around with a backwards fork. And that's because people are getting bikes that need assembly, and occasionally they will ship it in such a way where you can actually mix up the direction of the fork, but more often it was pre-assembled at the store and the assembler at the store got the fork backwards. I've seen this I don't know how many times. So how do you tell if a fork is forwards? Well, if it has a disc brake, it's really, really easy. It's gonna be on the opposite side as the chain. Right? Brakes go on the non-drive side. If it's not a disc brake bike, you can usually tell if it's a mountain bike, the crown of the fork, the top where the two legs of the fork connect, it's gonna be out front, in front of the bike, not behind the bike. Another way to tell, if your fork is backwards, the wheel is gonna be closer to the bike. It's further away from the bike when the fork is forward. And oftentimes they'll put a little label on the fork, and the assemblers still get it backwards because apparently they don't read. If the fork is backwards, I mean, I guess it's not technically gonna cause any problems, but the bike's gonna handle really weird, and like, I don't know, it's a pretty simple thing to not mix up if you know what to look for. So, disc brake should be on the opposite side as the chain, or if it's a mountain bike, that crown is gonna be out front, not in the back. So for the next simple repair, I've got an older bike up on the stand to better illustrate the issue here. Your bike is shifting and working properly, and then later on, it's not. So you start messing with this derailleur back here to get it to work again, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Let me show you the one mistake that leads to most of this. So there are a variety of adjustments on the derailleur. We have this little barrel over here. We have these two little screws over here that say H and L, and then we have a B screw over here. Okay, listen carefully. If your derailleur was working fine, and then subsequently it's not working fine, there are three things that you should probably never touch. The B screw and this H and L screw over here. If you're touching the H and L screw, you're installing a brand new derailleur. For its entire lifetime, under normal circumstances, you would probably never touch those. And so what is the problem? Well, what happens is you get a new bike or you get a tune-up, and then just through shifting gears, the ends of the cable housing kind of work their way in and the cable loosens up. And so all you have to do is tighten it a little bit. You just move this barrel outwards. You actually loosen it. Not much, just a couple of turns at a time, then try shifting again and see if it gets better. That's usually what happens. It is basically never this H and L, those are your limit screws, because they don't control how the derailleur shifts. All they control is how far it can go in either direction. It stops it from shifting off of the cassette. And it's almost never this B screw, because like I said, it was working and then it's not working. All of these adjustments get set up when the derailleur is being installed, and assuming it was shifting fine, they're not gonna move. Now, if putting some tension on the cable does not fix the problem, then most likely you impacted the derailleur on something and something's bent here, maybe the hanger. If you see a fresh scar on your derailleur, that's usually a telltale sign, and then you should watch my derailleur tuning video, which is going to give you all of the answers. So the next super easy bike maintenance task that people get wrong, the quick release skewer. And actually, you can find these on through axles. They're so confusing to some people that the industry has largely stopped using cam type quick release skewers and through axles. They're almost all bolt on now, but you're still gonna find a lot of these. And I see people use this paddle here like a wing nut. So I'm gonna loosen the front wheel here, but you can see I pull this back, it's now loose, and I can turn it to loosen it more. But what people do is they put the wheel on by just turning this and just pushing it until it's tight. That's not going to generate enough force. Now, this is not, in fact, a wing nut. This is a cam. A cam's a mechanical device that either rotates or slides, and that is how it exerts pressure. So basically what you're supposed to do with this to tighten it properly is flip it like this. Now, if it won't flip, that means it's too tight, and so you loosen the other side. Make sure that halfway you're starting to experience pressure, and then you should push it down with your palm, and you should see the imprint of it on your palm if it's tight enough. That is how you install a quick release wheel, whether it's one of these old style quick release skewers or an actual through axle. And again, a lot of bikes just have bolt-ons now because so many people are confused by this. I see it all the time. It is so often, it's like more than half the flip bikes that I buy to fix up, the wheel is installed improperly with a skewer. And so this is apparently not very obvious to people. So this next one, I have two stories to illustrate. So first, my grandpa, who's like 92 right now, he knows a little bit about computers. His computer's always messed up. Now, if you don't know anything about computers, you might not know enough to even mess the thing up. He knows enough to be dangerous. This next one is like that. If you know enough to be installing your own chain, you can mess this up. And actually, here's the next story. I was riding a demo bike over the summer. It was delivered to me by somebody who's very, very experienced, and I'm riding down the trail and I just hear this grinding sound. I'm like, what is going on here? I checked it. The chain was routed over the keeper tab. The bike will still work. It'll still shift, but you were grinding away part of your derailleur and experiencing grinding and a lot of resistance. Let me show you how it happens. So you can see here I have the chain disconnected. If we take the chain out, you can see it goes around this jockey wheel, around this little guy, and around the cassette. So when you're putting it back on, it goes the same way. You said, all right, I've watched a whole bunch of tutorials. I can lock this SRAM cage. I can route it around this pulley, and then I can route it around this one. Ha! I have tackled chain installation. No problem. Underneath there. And then we can reconnect the chain, and everything looks like it's fine. You unlock that cage, and hey, everything's working. It's pedaling. But why does it sound like absolute garbage? It's because you routed the chain over the keeper tab. And so, if you realize that this is the case on your bike and that's what was creating all the grinding noises, well, you have to disconnect your chain to fix it. So in this case, I'm gonna undo the quick link, and you're gonna pull your chain out here and make sure you go over that keeper tab. Make sure that chain is right up on this upper jockey wheel, and then do what you did before and everything should work fine. I don't mess with a lot of inner tubes these days, but this one got me just the other week. I showed that Specialized quite a few times today because I just restored it. There's gonna be a whole video about it, super cool, but I had to replace the inner tubes in it, and so I went to the store and I bought some inner tubes, and guess what? They were the wrong ones. I got the diameter right, I got the width right, I got everything right. And then I came home and I took the tires off and I started putting the new ones in, and I noticed that these had Presta valves. And what I really needed were Schrader valves. Do I know the difference between Schrader and Presta? Yes, most people do. Most people who ride bicycles do. I know it in great detail, yet I went all the way to the store, took inner tubes off the shelf, and came home with the wrong freaking ones, because sometimes it's so simple, it's just sitting under your nose and you don't think about it. And therefore, some of these mistakes are so easy to make that even if you work on bikes all day, you can make them. So I hope you found these tips interesting. I know a lot of you guys already know this stuff, but there are people you can share it with, or maybe you don't feel so bad that maybe you made some of these mistakes yourself. So if you like these videos, let me know. I could come up with 10 more simple mistakes. Thank you for making some mistakes with me in the shop today. I'll see you next time.